When you put yourself in situations like rock climbing facilitates, where you're putting your trust into someone else's hands and you're also putting your trust in yourself to challenge yourself and overcome things that you might not expect, things that you're scared of, things that feel really hard, that's just an opportunity to grow and push through boundaries that you might have thought impossible to push through before, and really discover parts of yourself that you might never have experienced before.
Hello, intrepid listeners, and welcome to the Carpe Diem Live Your Dream podcast. I'm your host, Dale Simonson, and my guests today are two incredible women, Kate Callaghan and Laura Pinault, who recently achieved a climbing milestone no other women have achieved. It's called the Yosemite Triple Crown, and it consists of speed climbing the three biggest walls in Yosemite, 8,000 vertical feet in total, all within a 24-hour period. I've never had so much fun with my guests as I did with these two. They are so serious about what they do, but so joyful and goofy at the same time. What a pair. And while the description of the climbs is awe-inspiring, you really should see their photos. They're truly epic. Check them out on my website at www.gocarpediemnow.com or on my Instagram at gocarpediemnow. Enjoy the show. Well, hello, both of you climbers. I have Laura Pinault and Kate Callaghan on today to talk about lots of things climbing related, but in particular, I want to hear about your recent big event, your Yosemite Triple Crown, that was a first in the record books, right?
Yep, that's right.
When was that? A couple months ago?
Yeah, June 7th to 8th is when we finished.
Okay. Maybe one of you can just give a quick overview for our audience what that is. What is the Yosemite Triple Crown?
Yeah, this Yosemite Triple Crown is what some people in Yosemite call like the final exam of Yosemite speed and big wall climbing. It's basically putting together the three biggest walls in Yosemite in 24 hours. All three are grade 6 walls. So, yeah, it's a very big day with a lot of hiking and a lot of climbing.
If I'm not mistaken, so I think most people probably have heard of El Capitan, and the route you take there is called the Nose. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
And then there's Half Dome, another marquee, well-known name. And I think, if I understand right, that's the northwest face that you climb,
Yep, the regular northwest face.
regular northwest face. And then the third wall is what, Mount Watkins?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, it sounds like I know what I'm talking about. I really don't. But Google helps.
You nailed it.
No, I've read about your accomplishment. It's really impressive. So we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But Kate, Laura, could you both just tell us a little bit about who you are, your background? Laura, why don't you start?
I'm a French rock climber. I started rock climbing back in 2017 when I was exactly 17 years old, back in the south of France, and it's been a really big passion since then. I've been committed to this sport for a long time, climbing 5 times a week since then, and I've also done my college degree in the US, which is why I've been spending so much time here in this country, which I really love, and it's been so much fun. And mostly I've done sport climbing and bouldering for the first, 5 years of rock climbing. And then 2 years ago, I started track climbing. So climbing cracks in Moab, Utah and Yosemite. And I've also discovered big walls 2 years ago. And when, I did my first nose attempt on El Capitan, like in April 2023, I really fell in love with big walls and climbing big things. And I finally knew, okay, this is what I'm meant for. I'm meant to go on big days, go on a Sufferfest, and having a great time with a great friend on the wall. And since then, I've been trying to push my limits and try to see how far I can go. And this challenge with Kate has been really amazing, and I've seen new face of my, of my potential and how far I could go. And I think if you do it with someone you really respect and admire and who can teach you a lot of things along the way, I think it's a really precious experience. So that's where I'm at in my life right now.
Okay, and I'm going to come back to that phrase you used, go on a Sufferfest. 'Cause not everybody
Definitely.
wants to go on a Sufferfest.
Yeah.
Okay, Kate, what's your background?
Yeah, I'm from Boulder, Colorado. I didn't start rock climbing till my senior year in college, so not till I was around like 21. historically was not an athletic person, but I ended up falling in love with trail running, and that kind of led me into rock climbing. My dad was a climber, so he introduced us to it at a young age, but didn't really take until later on. But once I discovered climbing, I kind of got totally obsessed with it, and it took over my life and redirected my life path in a major way. And since then, kind of like Laura, climbing 5 or 6 times a week, chasing really big goals. I was really excited about choosing audacious goals and kind of throwing myself at them. And that led me to Yosemite, where some of the biggest walls in the country exist, and fell in love with that place and the climbing there. I also am one to get some weird satisfaction out of long days and sufferfest. So we worked well together.
That is a common theme of most of the guests on this show. I definitely want to know how it is the two of you came together to do this, because I don't think you knew each other earlier, right? This event actually is what brought you together.
Yeah, so my ex-partner was training to do the triple crown with his best friend, and over a conversation, I'd heard from his friend that, oh, Kate Callaghan reached out to him to maybe partner for the triple crown, but they were doing it together, so he said no to Kate. And in this moment, I was like, oh, why not me? Like badass climber from Yosemite, especially a woman who's part of the search and rescue team is looking for someone to do something really big in a place that I call home and really love. And I was like, oh, why not reaching out to Kate? And so I texted her on Instagram and she replied, and we texted a long time. And me in the back of my head, I was like, oh, I'm already kind of getting psyched for the triple, but I had never speed climb, had never done it, had no experience in it. And I told Kate, hey, I'm going to speed climb the nose. I'll let you know how it goes. And it went pretty okay. And I thought, okay, like first time it's really scary. And then second time, because you know the route and you know the movements and the gear, it's not as scary as the first time. So I was like, oh, potentially could maybe do it. And I think Kate had a bit more doubts at the beginning than I had, but it just took 6 months of really hard work to make it happen.
Kate, this was originally your dream, and then Laura caught the bug. Is that how it worked? And then ultimately the two of you came together to team up?
Yeah, it sounds about right. For some weird reason, she decided this sounded like a fun thing to dedicate 6 months of her life to. Uh, but yeah, I had been looking for a partner actually for several years, and finding another woman was always in the back of my mind as like the ideal scenario. Like it would be so cool to do it with another woman and be the first female team. But the pool of partners for something like this is really small. So
Oh, I
yeah, I
gotta
eventually,
believe.
yeah,
Yeah.
I struggled to find somebody who, fit the bill, was like competent, strong enough, risky enough, and also, goofy enough, and like would have fun doing this with, because it's a very high intensity thing and a lot of time spent together, and also like pretty risky. And so there's a lot of factors. But yeah, just like fate had it, Laura would reach out at the right time. And so that's how it all came together.
Wow. Can one of you give a little play-by-play of the 24 hours, how this all unfolded?
Basically, it's 24 hours almost of climbing that we did, but the clock starts when you start climbing the first wall, and the clock stops when you get to the top of the last wall. So it doesn't necessarily include the hiking that you do to get to the first wall or the hiking that you do to get off of the last wall. So the whole day altogether is bigger than that like 24-hour window. But essentially, because the days are longer in summer, that's usually when the Triple Crown takes place for most teams, just to capitalize on daylight. And so it's all kind of centered around chasing shade. We hiked out to the first wall in the afternoon because that wall goes into the shade at 4 p.m. And so our clock started at 4 p.m. And that's when we started climbing. And on the day of the triple, we had kind of chosen the only window of days where there weren't supposed to be storms, but unfortunately that forecast didn't pan out. And so we ended up dealing with some like kind of intense and pretty big thunderstorms throughout the first and second day of the whole 24-hour window. So climbing on Mount Watkins, about halfway up, we're getting big dark clouds and thunder, and just like praying that we weren't going to get rained off. One, because it would mean ending the attempt, but also because it's incredibly dangerous on some of those pitches, which there's not much gear on some of those pitches. So if the rock was wet, it would be really dangerous. But Yeah, the wall itself is like the smallest of all three. So we did that one in like 4 hours and change, which was about like 40 minutes faster than we had ever done it. So we started off fast, which was a good sign.
But then you got to get down.
Yeah, and so basically how this works is the top of Mount Watkins is actually like decently close to the road in Tuolumne. So what people typically will do when climbing the triple is they will hike out from Mount Watkins to the road in Tuolumne and get picked up in a car. And then the car will drive them back down into Yosemite Valley to the base of Half Dome. And that's what we ended up doing.
Okay. So you then got to the base of Half Dome. I don't know. You have to hike in. Is there a bit of an approach there?
So first, base of El Capitan, and that approach is only like 15 minutes, so not much. And it was really cool because all of our friends met us there like 11 p.m. and we had a whole crowd of people that were just cheering for us when we got out of the van and packed our gear again and headed up to the base of El Cap. And then we climbed El Capitan, which is the biggest of the three walls, through the night. It took us about 7 hours and like 20 minutes or so.
Wow. And how many vertical feet is that?
3,000 roughly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the big one. And it was strangely, I mean it's not strangely, but it was hot because the valley quiets down at night. There's no wind and no breeze, and we ended up topping out on El Cap pretty dehydrated just because it was so hot and we were climbing really fast. So but luckily we had friends meet us on top of El Capitan and they had extra water and helped us get down from El Cap, which is about an hour and a half.
Wow. And at this point, is it light yet or still dark out?
Yeah, it got light around the last few pitches. So you kind of see the sun come up and you're like, okay,
Oh,
it's a new day. Like we can start fresh. We just
nice.
climbed a big wall instead of sleeping.
And I think maybe also another important thing to add about that day is like more than climbers, I think we train as ultra runners because usually when you climb, you never climb this long and this much and hike this much, which was a bit crazy. And so we had about like 20 people in our support team that followed us the whole day. And so we carried, no weight at all the whole day when we're either hiking or I mean climbing we're carrying sometimes some weight, but it was barely anything. It was very little. And it was, yeah, it was pretty, cool to see, friends and family at the end of every wall and then hike with them and then have transition in the car with one or two friends and hike again with other friends. I think that really kept us really excited and motivated the whole day. And they were a huge part of, why we did it under 24 hours, without a doubt.
I can imagine. And wouldn't it have been nice had they walked you down El Capitan in a palanquin carrying you?
Yeah, that would make it easier for sure on the knees.
Yeah. And so Half Dome was the last of the three.
Hmm.
Yes.
So after the nose, you came down, and then what time roughly were you starting the final climb?
We started hiking about 7:30 a.m. and then we started climbing around 9:40 a.m., I think.
And so at
Yeah.
this point, to hit that 24-hour cutoff, you were working against the clock with about what, 6.5 hours on it?
Yes, which was the exact time that we had done on Half Dome before. So we needed to basically hit our fastest time on Half
But
Dome.
you were fresh in that
Yeah, exactly.
previous. Okay. So how did that one go?
Surprisingly fast. Yeah, I think we both, when, at least for me, when I started that climb, I was like, oh man, I am so tired. And it felt really slow. Like it felt really hard. And I felt really tired. But like time just has a strange way of slowing down or becoming meaningless when you're kind of in that state of not sleeping, just delirious. So we ended up actually like doing okay on the first half of the climb. We were actually like on time potentially to like finish as fast as we ever had. And in my head, I was like, wow, that's crazy. I can't believe it, but like amazing. And if we do, we had it broken down 1.5 hours each for our next two blocks, we would make it. And so that was like what I needed to kind of like dig really deep and say, okay, like this is the moment where like you have to kind of break that final wall and find the energy that you don't think exists, which we all have. It's just you kind of have to, yeah, you have to dig really deep there. And
And you finished all of this with about, was it about 30 minutes to spare before that 24-hour cutoff?
Hmm.
Yeah, about 24. I think we did 23:36. So we had 24 minutes to spare, which when you think about it, it's nothing. In a
Yeah.
24-hour day where so many things can go wrong, like for example, we had a Sifi draw, which is like a long equipment where you can clip a bolt because some of those bolts were bolted by men and some of them were really tall and we're like a bit shorter. And so sometimes we needed that Sifi draw to clip some bolts and we had forgotten it in the car because of
Oh,
all the transition and all the equipment. Like we completely forgot that we needed this for Half Dome. And at the base, one of our friends built one out of a like, he
oh,
grabbed a stick in the forest and like clipped a sling to it, like taped it. And he built two because me, I was scared that maybe Kate, while using it, could maybe potentially break it. And I was like, okay, Jacob, please like make another one. We never know. So both of us had this wood stick, on our harnesses the whole way up. And when you think of a 24-hour day, yeah, 20 minutes is it's nothing. It's really ridiculous. So we
oh,
really
yeah.
made
You
it
had
just
a
short on
like a
time.
one or less than a 2% cushion there on time, I think, if
It's
I
Hmm.
nothing.
did the math right. Yeah. So I'm going to pretend I know something about climbing, and I'll I'll admit it was my daughter who prompted me with some of these questions. But are these routes considered sport climbing, meaning they're all pre-bolted, or is it trad climbing where you're bringing all your?
No, it's actually mostly trad climbing. Not to say
Is
that
it?
there aren't bolts along the way, but most of the
Uh-huh.
climbing we do is placing our own protection in cracks.
Okay. And that takes a lot more time and effort, doesn't it? And weight that you're carrying?
Yeah, the trade off is if you place less gear, you save more time. So you're always playing the game of like, how little protection can I place to save time while still being somewhat safe if I were to fall?
Boy, as a father of a climber, I don't like that trade-off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
my
don't
that.
tell her to go speed climbing. Maybe not. She doesn't have to do that. She can go normal free climbing. It's fun too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like bouldering in a gym with mats. No. But why don't you describe the mechanics of trad climbing?
So track climbing, technically, we are climbing cracks. And so when we climb those cracks, there's no protection around the cracks whatsoever. So we have what are called like friends or canlots. And so we put our own protections as we go up. And, as soon as one of us gets to an anchor, the other one joins her and then takes off all those protections just so we can keep using them as we go. I think that's the most important thing to know. And one different thing with speed climbing is that the leader should always keep moving and keep climbing. So what we're doing is sometimes when we get to an anchor, the leader pulls between 30 and 60 feet of rope, picks the rope so the second person can go up, and then that leader keep climbing. So that's the goal of speed climbing is that you always want to keep moving, especially your leader, because whenever the leader stops moving, the whole team stops moving and you're really losing a lot of time. And so, that's what Kate and I really had to figure out. It's like, how do we always keep moving efficiently? How much gear do we need? How much gear left do we have? Sometimes we added like one or two more friends in our gear because we needed more protection. And sometimes when you have a bit more gear, it means it's easier for you to free climb. And free climbing always goes faster than A climbing. And so like the more you free climb, the better and the faster you'll go. Sometimes A climbing, you back lean, which means you take off all the gear from under you to always have some gear. So sometimes if one of your gear pops out of the crack or anything wrong happens, you could take a really, really big fall. So outside of two falls I took on the training, which were definitely really unexpected and shook me off and definitely scared me a lot. Like Kate never fell, and most of the time, and when I fell, I was really safe and it was so okay. But when you speed climbing, mostly you almost never want to fall. You don't want to take risk, and you always want to be in control and know what you're doing in the moment.
And by fall, you mean you're in the harness, you're on the line, you're on the rope, and you fall until your equipment catches you. So
Mhm.
you're not, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I took one fall where I just had, one piece of equipment and like probably 60, 70 feet right under me. My foot slipped and I fell on it. And because, me and Kate have been doing track climbing for a while, we know what a good piece is. So every time we place a protection, we want it to be 100% solid. And so mine was solid and I was lucky, but it's still, you still don't want to fall and don't want to have that, that potential fall because it really shakes off your mental and your headspace, and you get way more scared. Like that whole day I was so scared of climbing afterwards because I realized,
Yeah.
oh yeah, potentially I could fall. The fall I took was like so tiny and nothing, but sometimes we risking like huge falls, and so if you fall at those moments, that could really be super dangerous.
It's good to get a little one once in a while to remind yourself of the risks.
Yeah, definitely.
I think in the beginning, Kate, you mentioned, or one of you mentioned, these walls are sixes ratings, is it?
Yeah, grade 6.
And what does that mean in the climbing world?
It's kind of maybe even an outdated rating at this point, or it's just a way to help understand like the level of commitment and intensity of the objective. So grade 6 typically were walls that would take multiple days for people to climb. Grade 6 is the highest. It's kind of complex. There's several grading systems that rock climbing has across the board. Grade 6 is more of like a bucket grade of like the whole objective is like this difficult, but these routes also have grades in the Yosemite decimal system, like 5.9, for example. So the grading system used to go from like 5.0 to 5.9 for rock climbing. One is walking on flat ground kind of thing. Two is like, yeah, a little bit more technical. Three gets more technical. Four, you're kind of using hands and feet. Five is where you start to use a rope, and 5.1, 5.2, up to 5.9. And then as the sport of rock climbing advanced, things became more difficult, and more difficult things were more attainable because of our equipment and this gear that we invented and everything, and rock climbing shoes. So then we started breaking into 510, and at 510, then it breaks down into 510 A, B, C, D, and then 511 A, B, C, D. And we are currently all the way up to 515 D, being the hardest grade that has ever been climbed.
Okay, but 5.9 on a big wall sounds pretty high.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, big walls are a whole different beast because there's so many other factors involved in being able to climb a big wall. But like 5.9 C2, for example, which is the nose grade, means like 5.9 is the hardest free climbing moves you'll have to do with your hands and feet. But C2, which stands for clean aid, there's A2, which is not clean, and then C2, and that goes all the way up to 6 as well. Aid is where you're putting protection in the crack and potentially leaving it there forever. And then C means you're putting protection in and you're taking it out as you go up. So the nose,
Okay.
like, yeah, 5.9, free climbing moves with your hands and feet. But then anything harder, you can use protection and clip a ladder to it and pull up on it.
Huh. Okay. How many pitches were involved?
Depending on how you climb the routes, like it might be plus or minus one pitch or so, but Watkins, the south face is about 18 pitches. Half Dome is 23 pitches about, and then El Cap is around 30, 31 pitches.
Wow.
In typical climbing, the leader will climb a pitch, which say it's 100 feet. So they get to the top of 100 feet. There's an anchor, or you build your own anchor with gear, and then you bring your partner up to you. So it's kind of like a caterpillar style. But then
Yeah.
with speed climbing, like Laura was explaining, you never want to stop moving. So essentially, you get to the top of the 100 feet and you build your anchor, or you have an anchor, and then you pull up 60 feet of rope so that you have a leash now, and you fix it
Yeah.
with a knot to a carabiner on the anchor, and that way your partner is using jumars, which are devices that ascend a rope, and so your partner starts jumaring up the rope, and you have 60 feet where you can keep climbing. So hopefully by the time they get to the anchor, they'll put you back on belay and you'll just continue
Yeah.
climbing.
That's like choreography. I can see how you really need to pick your partner well, especially for a speed attempt like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Partner is critical.
Describe a little bit the physical versus mental fortitude that was required on this.
I think Laura and I are both in the best shape of our life right now
Mm,
Yeah,
from
yeah.
this whole
I
process.
mean, yes and no, because now it's like, we're not as strong as climbers because we've been
Hmm.
climbing easy grades for such a long time. But I think it just, yeah, I mean, we did a lot of like easy climbing for a long time as a training for it. And I think a lot of people could do this in the climbing community, but I think probably not everyone would be willing to take the risk. And I think that's maybe one thing that Kate was struggling to find a partner with, is that I think there's a lot of other women that physically they could really easily do it, but it's like, are they willing to risk 60 feet to 100 feet falls? And like, are they okay with that risk? And can they still keep moving fast?
What was the hardest part?
Mhm. Yeah, it's hard to say. I feel like physically, my feet were definitely burning. Like it felt when we got to the top of Half Dome, it felt like I was walking on a stovetop by the end of 24 hours. But then like mentally, yeah, you're in that zone where you're just like, I can't stop moving. It's dangerous if I stop moving. My partner is dependent on me to continue moving and hold it together. Um, yeah, but then like physically, our hands and feet were definitely taking a beating, and
Yeah, I think for me it was slightly maybe a bit more different. Like my hands and feet were not bad. It was my first, so me, it was my first 24 hours day. So I didn't know how I would go. And, but me, I did almost fell asleep on Half Dome because I led the first 9 pitches and Kate was following me. So we were both like simul climbing, which is called. So it's when you climb at the same time and place protection as you go up. And then Kate took over for her final block of 6 pitches. And for 3 pitches, I only belayed her. I didn't really climb, so I became really, static at the belays, and it took a while. And it's really like the definitely the sleep deprivation hit me super hard. I was falling asleep at the belays and giving myself slaps, and I was like, oh dear God, like if I fall asleep, I was definitely getting a little worried. And that's when I
If
was
Kate only
kind of
knew.
lying to Kate and telling her, no, no, girl, you're doing so well. Like we're on track. Like let's keep going.
Was there something that really surprised either of you in those climbs that maybe you hadn't expected, you hadn't prepared for?
there was there was a I always get scared of I'm scared of spiders, and like I know that they come out on El Cap at night because I've done missions like this before, but I'm always a little surprised how many spiders are in the cracks that you have to climb. And frogs and
And
bats
frogs too.
and ants and
Frogs,
like
so many
yeah,
frogs.
there's a lot of
Crazy.
wildlife on those walls at night.
Oh.
And like when you shine your headlamp up, all of the spiders'
That's
eyes
a
light
little
up, which is
disconcerting.
terrifying.
I never thought of that.
And then you
Yeah.
have to put your fingers in. But yeah, the other thing that was kind of funny and also gross that happened was I think like a week or two before our attempt, so another wall party had basically dropped a bag of theirs that was carrying their waste, and that had exploded all over one of the
Oh,
pitches on the nose.
oh,
So like
oh.
yeah, we had to climb through that both on our last practice run and on the day of. But luckily, it was nighttime, so you didn't see it, see what you were
But
climbing
you knew
through.
it was there.
But
You
that was
smelled its
like, yeah,
presence.
no, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Just keep your mouth closed while you're
Yeah.
climbing through that part.
Wow. Is night climbing particularly different than in the daytime? I mean, you're really, I would think, focused on the space within your headlamp, but how is that different?
Yeah, it definitely is like an interesting like people are scared of it in theory, but yeah, you really do zone into what your like tiny little bubble of light with your headlamp, and you almost don't know how high off the ground you are because there isn't really like a breeze at night there. And when you're in the zone climbing stuff like that, yeah, it really does become about your next handhold, your next foothold, like what's the next step of this process to keep up
Yeah.
consistent motion. I think the other thing that's nice in Yosemite is known for the footholds being like really bad, or basically you're smearing your foot on the wall and just like hoping it sticks. But at nighttime, you don't actually see how bad the footholds look. So you kind of just like put your feet on them and trust them more quickly, which
Hmm.
I've found to be kind of nice.
How do you navigate the route? Is it just because you know it so well? I mean, you're talking 3,000 plus vertical feet. Is it easy to follow?
Yeah, I can say with confidence that Laura and I knew almost every single move on all three of those routes, like all 72 pitches, all 8,000 feet of climbing. Like none of that was unexpected or Like, we just wanted to have every single move dialed, every piece of gear. We wrote down pretty much every single piece of gear for every pitch on paper and would study it and make changes as we like tweaked our beta.
Is that akin to, say, I mean, 8,000 feet, that's a mile and a half. Is that like someone memorizing every crack in the sidewalk, walking a mile and a half down the road?
I guess so, but when you're putting your hands and feet on them, it's much more personal.
How many times would you say you had climbed each of those routes prior to the actual Triple Crown?
I'm at 20 something on the nose on LCAP since I've been doing this for years and years. And then, yeah, maybe close to like 10 on Half Dome and a handful on Watkins, like 5 or 6. But Laura's less because
And so me before the triple, we climbed together with Kate probably the nose like 4 times, and then we climbed Watkins 4 times and Half Dome just twice. We kind of had time goal sets for each mountain, and it took us a long time to achieve them. I thought it would take us less time to achieve them, but no, it took us longer. And so we weren't sure we could really do sub 24 hours. We were almost thinking of just doing a push and see what was happening. And on our final week of training, that was very special because on each mountain, we finally hit all of our time goals, and we're like, oh wow, we actually have a shot at this. And that was a little confidence boost just 2 weeks before the triple, where I think that was very helpful. And it's the moment where we're like, okay, now we have a shot. Now let's pack for 1 week straight. And for 5 days nonstop, we packed every water, every like granola bar, every like carbohydrate water. We planned everything like mountain per mountain, which bag goes in which car, when do we need to eat that, drink this, like what food are we gonna need. So I think all this packing really made our transitions really smooth, where we didn't lose extra time, which we didn't have.
So I'm going to ask, this Triple Crown is collectively quite different than what you'd done in the past. How did this experience change you? What did you learn from it, or what did you gain from it? Kate?
I come from a speed climbing background and I had been ramping up with goals prior to this that were similar. Like, I had done 2 El Cap routes in one day, and I had also done the link up of El Capitan and Half Dome in a day. So I had experience doing kind of like these bigger missions, and I really grew to love the process of training and like having a goal with a partner who you trust and who you enjoy spending time with. And I find that super rewarding. And the triple was kind of the ultimate version of that.
What about you, Laura?
Yeah, I really do feel the same way. And I think both Kate and I like love Yosemite so much. And I've had so many great life experiences here that I think doing something no woman had done before together here in a place where or climbing changed our lives. And this, yeah, this place taught us so much. I think that was very special. And again, the bond we created over time, I think Kate is probably the person I've climbed the most with. We were here to like really trust each other and do the scary things together, and you cannot just do it with anyone. And so yeah, I've discovered something that, if you climb with someone enough, you can really have this amazing flow together and almost not even have to communicate on the wall.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I think you both know the aim of this podcast, of this show, is to just encourage my listeners to mix things up in their life, take on some challenge, maybe not the Yosemite Triple Crown, maybe not Half Dome or El Capitan, but something. What would you say to inspire the listeners to do the same?
I could speak to this because before I rock climbed, I was an artist. And don't get me wrong, like, I have great friends from my childhood and from that time. But when you put yourself in situations like rock climbing facilitates, where you're putting your trust into someone else's hands and you're also putting your trust in yourself to challenge yourself and overcome things that you might not expect, things that you're scared of, things that feel really hard, that's just an opportunity to grow and push through boundaries that you might have thought impossible to push through before, and really discover parts of yourself that you might never have experienced before. Like, I certainly never thought I would be doing outdoorsy things. Like, if you had asked me when I was a teenager, like, it was a hell no. But when you like start to get into, yeah, the outdoors really does like foster such an amazing community. You make these relationships with people that are so close and so vulnerable because there's really no other option. You have to trust them with your life in climbing.
I like that. Just try new things, whether it's outdoors and pushing yourself physically or not. It's just try new things.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Laura?
Yeah, Mia, I think what has always helped me in life is goal setting. I think, whatever goal you may have, and I think if that goal scares you, it probably means it's the right challenge for you. Whereas it's, I don't know, doing the Tour de Mont Blanc hiking, or it's maybe climbing your first multi pitch in 3 months. Because if you have a goal that's a bit long term in the year, 3 months ahead of you, or 6 months, or 1 year, then you go backwards and you set like smaller goals along the way and smaller objectives to like obtain this big goal. And that's what Kate and I did. So me, I would say, yeah, goal setting is really big in my life and has helped me a lot.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for that. It reminds me, I still have my long run to do today. I set a goal. I'm going to be out in Boulder
Nice.
actually in 2 weeks for my first 100 miler, a hundo.
Wow, nice.
Yeah,
Wow. Big
yeah.
one.
I've no. Have
Congrats.
either of you done 100?
No.
Never.
Okay.
Nope. No interest.
Neither did I until I had a podcast guest who convinced me.
The dangers
Yeah,
of
Really?
podcasting.
Nice.
it is. I know. I always want to do everything my guests have done. So, no, I mean, I would love to climb El Capitan. I don't see that
Yeah.
happening anytime soon, but you never know. Like I said,
Yeah. Maybe with your daughter,
Yeah.
yeah,
that
exactly.
that could be a pretty goal.
So I'm going to play a little game with you two, and then I'm going to move on to my last question. All right, a little game here to see just how well you two know each other as climbers. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask,
Oh boy.
I'm going to ask you two questions, and I'll count to three, and it'll be one, two, three, and you both give your answer simultaneously, okay? And we'll see if
Okay.
they're the same or different. So I'm going to ask you to each think of the adjective that best describes your Triple Crown experience. The adjective. One, two, three.
Epic.
Uh, Adjective. I don't have it at all. I was thinking of words, but I was gonna say badass.
Okay.
But yeah, it's probably not an adjective. It's probably just a noun, but that's my noun, I
Groundbreaking.
guess.
I didn't give you enough time. I didn't give you enough time.
No worries. Yeah,
Laura
that's
has to
maybe the
translate
language
from
barrier.
French in her head,
In
so.
7 seconds.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're right. I need the translation.
It was more the adjective problem. If you had said a word, I would have said right away.
Uh, no, but I like both of your answers. That's great. Okay, second round,
Uh,
round two here. What is the adjective? And this is a describer of a noun, Laura. No. What is the
okay.
adjective, the one word that best describes your climbing partner? One, two, three.
Frother.
Trustworthy. Brother.
Okay. And because you both followed the rules and said it at the same time, it was hard to hear who said what. So, Kate, what did you say of Laura?
I said frother, which is climbing lingo for someone who's incredibly psyched.
Oh, I knew we'd get some good lingo in here. That's why I didn't understand what you were saying. And Laura, what did you say about Kate?
I said trustworthy, but now that I'm thinking, I would say trustworthy and goofy. Second one. I think both of those
Okay.
were great.
Okay. Well, that puts us at our last question that I ask all my guests. Laura, what is your next big dream adventure?
Oh boy, big question. My next big adventure, I think probably will happen in Yosemite this fall. I'm definitely really excited on being back to, hard free climbing. So right now I'm more in a training period of my life and trying to look for partners who could be psyched on the same objectives. But there's a lot of big walls left in Yosemite. I want to free climb. I want to go back to free climbing on El Cap, other routes and other formations too. So that's definitely where I'm going towards.
Okay. Kate?
Yeah, totally. It's hard to say. I think right now I'm also going into another training cycle because we got weak while we were climbing fast. But I think for me, the things that are inspiring are choosing like a location in the world that I haven't been and then picking a cool climbing goal there. So been bouncing around with the idea of Norway with one of my partners, but I guess the next thing on the calendar is Horseshoe Hell in Arkansas, which is like a 24-hour climbing competition. So that's the next thing I have that's coming up.
I'm going to look that one up. All right. Well, great. Both of you. I loved having the team. It was nice to have both of you at the same time. And I can tell you must have had a blast on those walls during the 24 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us on. That was really fun. It's really fun to talk about and relive the moments.
Yes, thank you so much for the conversation.
Okay. Well, you have a good day. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Carpe Diem Live Your Dream podcast. If you like the show, there's nothing more valuable to me than you following it and sharing it with others. I drop a new episode every Friday, so tune in again for another great adventure story. And check out the accompanying website, www.gocarpediemnow.com, and then go seize the day and live your dream.